Hey guys, I'm back for chapter 40 for The War That Saved My Life. Sorry I haven't posted any videos this week. I just realized it was Friday and I haven't posted one since Monday. So, apologies to that, to leave you on such a cliffhanger. In the last chapter, chapter 39, a big chapter, Ada ended up capturing a spy. She spotted one from her outlook on the top of the hill and turned it into the police, and it was a spy. So, chapter 40. The army had found the suitcase buried in the sand. It contained a radio transmitter, the sort spies use to send coded messages across the channel. The perfect Englishman really had been a spy. I became a hero. The RAF men at the airfield brought me chocolate. The WVS women pulled together a tablespoon of sugar each and gave me a whole bag. Daisy's mother from the pub hugged me whenever she saw me, and every time I went into the village, I was greeted with smiles and shouts of, "There's our little spy catcher," or "There's our good lass." It was as if I'd been born in the village, as if I'd been born with 2 strong feet, as if I really was someone important, someone loved. Jamie made me repeat the story over and over again. "Tell me," he'd beg, "tell me your hero story." Maggie wrote from her school. "Ooh, I wish I'd been with you. I might have been, if I'd been home." "I wish you had been," I wrote back. "You wouldn't mind sharing the honors?" she replied. "I wouldn't have minded at all. It would have been easier." Hero wasn't a word I was used to hearing. The admiration was interesting, but the attention made me feel unsettled. "Say it again," Jamie said, giggling. "Tell me what you told the first officer." "He looked at my bad foot," I said, and I said, "My foot's a long way from my brain." "And you were right," Jamie said. "Yes," said Susan. She was. Of course, the part that was frightening was that there had been an actual spy, a real spy, sent to make the invasion easier. When the air raid siren started up again, it was hard not to be very afraid. "But you caught him," Jamie said. "I caught one spy," I said. "One." The sirens had started earlier than usual that evening. While we were still eating, we'd carried our plates to the shelter with us. "And now he's dead," Jamie said, chewing with his mouth open. "We took him out to a field, lined him up, and pow!" He mimed, firing a gun. I flinched. "Probably not," Susan said. I asked. Jamie narrowed his eyes. "What'd we do then?" "Nobody will say for sure." I picked through the boiled potatoes on my plate. Susan had left the peels on because peeling potatoes wasted food, and we weren't allowed to waste food in wartime. I didn't like the peels. England had a lot of potatoes. We were supposed to eat them every day. Probably turned him, Susan said. Made him a double agent. That means the government would force him to send false messages back to Germany with a transmitter of his. "They'd make him tell lies," I said. "Yes," Susan said. Jamie scowled. "I wouldn't do that. If the Germans caught me, I would," I said. "If he doesn't lie, they'll shoot him. I'd lie if I had to." Now sometimes the German planes attacked in daylight. If they were far away, Jamie and I stood in the field and watched them, shielding our eyes against the sun. The planes looked like swarms of insects buzzing in circles in the sky until one plummeted, leaving a trail of smoke. From such a distance, I couldn't tell the English planes from the German planes, but Jamie could. "One of ours," he'd say, or "one of theirs." Sometimes we could see the puff of a parachute opening as a pilot bailed out. I always hoped for that puff, even when the plane was German. 2 of the pilots who had come for Christmas dinner had died. When Jamie found out, he cried himself to sleep. I thought of their faces, how they'd laughed and played with Jamie. Unlike Jamie, I hadn't remembered their names. I'd been too upset that day about my green dress. I understood why I'd been upset on Christmas. I felt overwhelmed. I really couldn't help myself. But now, thinking back, it seemed a little silly to be unhappy about a dress when the pilots were dead. If I had to do it over, I would at least have learned their names. England lost planes every day. Germany lost more. New planes flew into our airfield from the north of England. New pilots came straight from their training fields. They went up every day, and not all of them came back. "We had to win this battle," Susan said, "or we would lose the war." On the radio, Prime Minister Churchill said, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." It meant the pilots were saving us all. It meant that they were the only thing keeping the Germans away. September came. I quit attracting so much attention in the village. A week ago, British planes had attacked Berlin. The first time we'd taken the war onto German soil. Fred cackled in delight. "We'll show 'em now." A small piece of damaged German plane had come down on the edge of one of the Thorntons' wheat fields. Fred gave it to me to take to Jamie. "How do you know it's German?" I asked, turning the scrap of metal over my hands. "I saw the bugger," Fred said. "He was heading back over the channel, trailing parts of his airplane as he went." It was bad training to let Butter run when he was close to home, but that day I did it. I felt so happy. The sun was warm, I couldn't see planes or hear sirens, and Jamie would be so pleased to have the chunk of a German plane. Butter galloped happily, his ears pricked. I'd been practicing my jumping all summer, and even though Fred hadn't given me permission yet, I knew we were ready. Instead of slowing Butter for the pasture gate, I turned him toward the stone wall and urged him forward. He flew it. We jumped the wall at last. Across the field, I could see Susan standing in the back garden with Jamie and an adult I didn't know. I kicked Butter on, flying down the field. "Jamie," I yelled, "I brought you a piece of Messerschmitt." I pulled Jamie up and patted his neck, laughing. "Did you see us jump?" I asked Susan. "Did you?" Then I recognized the woman standing beside her. "Ma'am." All right, that is the end of chapter 40. Another cliffhanger. So I know I've asked you guys to tell me something you've been doing other than your schoolwork, something I told you to do something fun. So comment on the video if you've been reading another book. I know that English has been reading Freak the Mighty, so you all know me, I love to read. So what I've been reading during this time is I've been reading The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas, sorry. So the next book I'll be reading will be the second book to The War That Saved My Life, which is called The War I Finally Won. So hopefully we can read that one when we get back to school. So have a good weekend, guys, and I'll see you next week.